I, F, 28, thought love meant sacrificing everything, but I learned the hard way that some sacrifices only lead to regret. Now, I don't know how to pick up the pieces of my life. My boyfriend, M, 29, and I have been together for just over 3 years. We had our ups and downs, but I genuinely believed he was my person. My parents, however, never liked him. They thought he was using me and warned me time and time again that I deserved better. I always brushed it off as them being overprotective until recently. Around our 2-year anniversary, my boyfriend wanted to buy a house. He was so excited, so sure that it was the next step in our relationship. The only problem? He couldn't qualify for a mortgage on his own. His finances weren't in great shape, but he swore up and down that once we had the house, everything would get better. He just needed a little help. I wanted to build a future with him, so I became a co-borrower. My name was on the loan, my credit was on the line, and my financial stability was now directly tied to his. The moment the paperwork was signed, everything changed. Suddenly, he became reckless with money. It wasn't just occasional bad spending habits, it was an avalanche of irresponsibility. He never paid his bills in full, was always just short on the mortgage, and guess who had to cover for him? Me. At first, I told myself it was temporary, that he was adjusting to the new expenses and that things would level out, but they never did. I started skipping meals just to make sure the mortgage was paid, while he had Amazon packages arriving at the door almost every day. I confronted him about it many times. Each time, he'd either brush it off or make me feel guilty. He'd tell me he was trying, that I knew what I was signing up for, or worse, he'd sulk and accuse me of not believing in him. My parents saw what was happening. They watched me go from someone who was independent and financially stable to someone who was drowning in debt, exhausted and barely scraping by. So they made me an offer. If I left him and never looked back, they would pay off all my debts, help me get my credit back on track, and support me while I got back on my feet. It was the hardest choice of my life. I loved him. I had built a life with him. How could I just walk away? So I turned down the offer. Then everything crumbled. He overheard me talking to my mom about it and wouldn't stop badgering me until I told him the full story. I was hoping he'd be touched that I chose him over financial security, that he'd see how much I believed in us. But instead, he scoffed. If I got an offer like that, I wouldn't even hesitate. I'd be gone. That single sentence shattered something inside me. For 3 years, I had prioritized him over myself. For 3 years, I sacrificed, endured, and struggled believing that love meant staying no matter what. And in a heartbeat, he made it clear that he didn't see it the same way. That if the roles were reversed, he wouldn't even think twice about leaving me behind. I was devastated. But even through the heartbreak, there was clarity. I had chosen him over my future, my well-being, my financial stability, and he had just told me he wouldn't have done the same. The next morning, I called my parents. I told them I had made a mistake. And then I told my boyfriend I was done. At first, he acted indifferent, like he didn't care. But then, the panic set in. He begged me to stay, said he didn't mean it, that I was taking it the wrong way. But the thing is, I wasn't taking it the wrong way at all. I had simply woken up to the truth. Leaving wasn't easy. It was messy. It was painful. He made it as difficult as possible, accused me of betrayal, tried to guilt me into staying, even attempted to manipulate my parents by painting himself as the victim. But for the first time in years, I wasn't backing down. It's been a month since I left. My parents held up their end of the deal. My debts are gone, my credit is already improving, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can breathe again. But the real win? I finally learned that love isn't about sacrificing yourself to prove your loyalty. Real love is mutual. It's balanced. It's not a never-ending compromise where only one person is giving up everything. I almost lost myself trying to keep someone who never really valued me. Never again. I, 27M, have been dating my girlfriend Emily, 26F, for 3 years. We've had our ups and downs, but I always thought we had a strong foundation. We lived together, share finances for household expenses, and had even been talking about getting engaged sometime in the next year. Everything seemed solid until I got a text from a mutual friend last week that completely shattered my perception of our relationship. It was a simple message. "Hey man, don't want to stir shit, but I saw Emily at the work party last night. She was holding hands with some guy for a long time. Thought you should know." I stared at the screen for a long time, debating what to do. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she was just drunk, being friendly. But as I sat there, my stomach twisted in knots. I decided not to react right away. Instead, I called my friend Josh, who was also at the party, to get the full story. Josh hesitated before he spoke. "Look, dude, it wasn't just hand-holding. They were sitting close, whispering, and at one point he had his arm around her waist. I didn't see anything beyond that, but it definitely wasn't just friendly. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Emily had never given me a reason to distrust her before, but something about this felt off. And the worst part, she hadn't said a single word to me about it. No mention of any of this when she came home from the party. I decided to wait and see if she would bring it up on her own. But the next day came and went, and she acted completely normal, maybe even a little too normal. It was like she was overcompensating, showering me with affection, laughing at my jokes a little harder than usual. I felt like I was living in a parallel universe, where she was pretending everything was fine while I was sitting there knowing something was very, very wrong. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. That evening, as we were sitting on the couch watching Netflix, I turned to her and asked, "How was the party?" She smiled. "Oh, it was fun. Just the usual work gossip, a few drinks, nothing crazy." I nodded slowly. "Did anything happen?" I watched her reaction carefully. Emily furrowed her brow. "What do you mean?" I said, feeling my pulse quicken, "I heard from someone that you were holding hands with a guy there." Her expression froze. For a split second, just a fraction of a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Panic, maybe? Guilt? Then she quickly composed herself. "Oh, that?" She let out a small laugh, but it sounded forced. "That was just Mark. He's gay, babe. We were just messing around. You know how it is." A weight lifted off my chest. Maybe I had overreacted. "Oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure." "Of course." She kissed my cheek. "I'd never do anything to hurt you, and that should have been the end of it, but something still felt off." Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't telling me the whole truth. Something wasn't adding up. My friend had specifically said that they looked cozy. Would a gay coworker really act like that with her? And why hadn't she mentioned it on her own? I decided to dig a little deeper. I went through Emily's social media, but nothing stood out. Then I noticed something odd. Emily had suddenly gotten really close with a new coworker named Mark over the past few months. They had inside jokes, tagged each other in memes constantly, and had been spending more time together outside of work. I wasn't the jealous type, but something about it just didn't sit right with me. A week later, Emily told me she was going out for a girls' night. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but my gut told me something was off. I decided to check her location, not because I wanted to invade her privacy, but because I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being lied to. Her location? Not at the bar she said she was going to. Instead, she was across town, at some random residential address. My heart started pounding. I called Josh. "Dude, I think something's going on. I need you to come with me." We drove to the address, parking a few houses away. Sure enough, Emily's car was there. Josh and I sat in silence for a few minutes before I finally decided to get out. I didn't even know what I was going to do. Confront her? Walk away? I felt like I was about to throw up. Before I could knock on the door, it swung open, and there was Emily, standing in the doorway, laughing, with Mark. But here's the kicker: Mark was definitely not gay. He was standing way too close, his hand lingering on her back. And the second she saw me, her face drained of color. "Oh my God," she whispered. I didn't even need to hear an explanation. The way she looked at me said it all. I don't even remember what I said after that. I know there was yelling. I know I asked her why. I know she tried to say it wasn't what it looked like, but I didn't need to hear her excuses. I left. That night, I packed a bag and stayed at Josh's place. The next morning, I blocked her on everything. She tried to reach out, tried to explain, but I was done. Looking back, I should have trusted my gut the first time. I should have known that holding hands was just the tip of the iceberg. I never thought something as small as deleting a social media app would lead to my entire marriage crumbling in front of me. But here I am, staring at the wreckage of what I thought was a strong, loving relationship. For context, my wife and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4. We have 2 beautiful daughters, 7 and 3. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I thought we had a solid foundation: mutual respect, attraction, laughter, and teamwork. But that illusion shattered over something seemingly trivial. Like many couples, we had a little ritual. Throughout the day, we'd send each other funny or interesting TikToks. It was a small thing, but it kept us connected in the mundane grind of daily life. But about a week ago, my algorithm got messed up. Instead of lighthearted memes or cooking videos, my For You page was flooded with gut-wrenching clips: parents saying goodbye to terminally ill children, soldiers reuniting with their families only to deploy again, tragic loss after tragic loss. I'm not ashamed to admit it, I'm an emotional person. And as a father, those videos hit me hard. I found myself choking up at my desk, needing to step away just to compose myself. It got to the point where I couldn't handle it anymore, so I deleted TikTok. Problem solved. Or so I thought. A few days later, my wife noticed I had stopped sending her videos and asked why. I casually explained it, not thinking much of it. She made a weird face but didn't say anything, and we moved on. Or so I thought. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I tried to initiate sex. We have a great sex life, passionate, frequent, no complaints. But this time, she turned me down. I didn't push. I just went back to reading. Then, completely unprompted, she said, "You admitting you were crying over TikTok gave me the ick. It just seems so feminine." I laughed at first because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. I asked her what she meant, and she doubled down. "It's just not attractive. I don't know. It made me see you differently." I was stunned, hurt, angry. I told her I didn't think emotions were something to be ashamed of, that real men feel things, and that being a father to 2 daughters, I wanted to model emotional intelligence for them. She just shrugged and said, "I can't help how I feel." I got up and left the room, needing space. I slept on the couch that night. She texted me, saying I was being dramatic and acting like a man-child. But something inside me shifted. I couldn't ignore how little she valued my emotions. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. But I couldn't let it go.